Um, Memories of Bret and Owen, getting the chance to interact with them and to be in the ring with them.
Yeah, it was great. Both Bret and Owen were really good amateurs. They wrestled in elementary, junior high, high school, and then university as well. They were collegiate wrestlers. They probably could have qualified for the Canadian national team, maybe the Olympics. They didn't go that far with it, but they were really good amateur wrestlers. My dad was quite proud of them. I wrestled with Owen on the university team here in Calgary, and he was a really good wrestler. And I watched Bret when I was a little younger. I was 3 years younger than Bret. Bret, he just had good technique, good balance, and I think we were natural wrestlers, but we learned a lot from my dad and our older brothers that wrestled before us. But when Bret broke in, it was exciting. He was the first Hart in a few years to make his debut. Bruce and Keith had already been wrestling for a few years, and they were well established. When Bret started out, he was only, I think, about 19 or 20. He was pretty young. And he just had so much fire, so much appeal. Young fans liked him, old fans liked him. He was um, a sensation, because he was Stu's next son to get into wrestling. But everything Bret did, he earned. He unlike some promoters' sons, who got a push because they were um, promoters' sons, and they had some name recognition, but they really didn't have much technique. Bret was a really natural wrestler, and it really helped that he had some good guys to work with. He worked with Dynamite Kid. He worked with the guys who trained him a lot, Hito and Sakurada. Leo Burke was another one. Bret had some classic matches with Dr. D, David Schultz. Um, so. Brett, I could say, was just a natural, and he got better and better. With each year of wrestling, and then he went to Japan and wrestled there. He wrestled in Germany, he wrestled in the UK, and he was well versed in all styles. And it really wasn't a shock that he made it in the WWE. It took a little while for him to get established there, um, because he was well known in Canada, but he had to really prove himself in WWF. And there were older, more established guys, that were kind of ahead of him. So Bret worked hard. He worked in tag teams with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and um, he excelled in tag team matches, but he was also a really good singles wrestler. And when the time was right, he made his move in singles, and then they switched him to a baby face, and then he had a great run as a world champion. And with Bret, I always felt he had the talent, but sometimes it just took the right promoter or booker to recognize that and to give him that opportunity. Owen started a few years later, but he was just a real natural. He was maybe a little more high flying, a little more agile than Bret, but a very good technical wrestler as well. Um, and Owen was just incredible. He could do backflips and somersaults from the top ropes, and he was just phenomenal. But he always practiced those things so carefully. He would have a spotter, and he would do that backflip off the top rope and land perfectly on his feet. But that took a lot of practice. It didn't just come naturally on the first try. But Owen always made sure he worked on it, before he executed in the ring, because he didn't want to go out there and go sideways or slip or fall. So he wanted it to look really polished and smooth, and it did. And um, Owen was just a really great technician, and just had some phenomenal matches. Worked kind of as a cruiserweight or a mid heavyweight for the first few years, and really excelled in Japan and UK and Germany, where they use smaller guys. And then eventually got a pretty good break in the WWE, and did that storyline where he worked heel against Bret, as the jealous younger brother, and they just had some phenomenal incredible matches there, and it was real testament to what they had both learned from the Stampede style and carried with them all those years.
Were there plans for you to join them? Did you ever think about wanting to go to the WWE at some point?
I kind of knew that I wouldn't get that far. I didn't have the size, Stanley, and by the time I was in my late 20s, I kind of knew, I was probably not going to make it on that level. So, I still wrestled occasionally. I would quite often wrestle on smaller tours, but I really wasn't trying to compete with Owen or Bret, who were more established stars. And I was more behind the scenes then. So I was writing programs. I was training guys in the dungeon with my brother Bruce. I was doing TV production, so I was contributing in a lot of ways. But I kind of knew that I maybe didn't have quite the size or the athleticism, to make it on that level that like Brett or Owen or Dynamite or Davey, and that was fine with me. I was happy with my involvement with wrestling and what I contributed, and and that was good for me. I had no regrets. I just contributed in a lot of ways. Kind of a different builder category.